Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today marks the 6-year milestone of my first ever Booktube video upload. It has been a very interesting 6 years. I see no reason why I won't be doing this in another 6 years, while obviously real life events, stopping me or changing drastically what my day-to-day schedule is. I have greatly enjoyed these 6 years, and I've greatly enjoyed interacting with everybody through YouTube and indeed through Twitter and other social media platforms. And I'm really grateful to everybody who has commented on any video that I've ever made over those 6 years, because people commenting is what makes this manageable and what makes it fun. Without people commenting and all the conversations and the people I got to know, this, to be honest, wouldn't still be happening, because I probably would have stopped it by now. So frankly, it still amazes me that people actually are interested in my videos, because I still don't think I'm a natural speaker, but I know that I'm much better than I was. Anyway, this video is going to be a Q&A, the answers part this time. 4 weeks ago I said to everybody that you can ask me whatever questions about near enough any subject you fancy, and a fair few people did indeed ask me things. So without further delay, I'll get started talking about the questions. And I will be doing them chronologically by person, so these won't be in any particular order as far as theme goes. Anyway, and I'll be reading them off my notepad, so I will be looking down quite a bit. Enderman's Rage asks, what book or book series would you like to see adapted as a movie or a TV series? And actually, the one to this is an interesting one, because it is Artemis Fowl by Owen Colfer. This has already been turned into a movie, which has actually been released this summer, in about 4 months, I believe, or something. However, I'm not interested in the movie version of it. I always hoped it'd be turned into an animated TV series. They could make a 10-12 episode series of each book, so there'd be somewhere between 80 to 100 episodes in total, and it would be really, really interesting, because, of course, the books mix technology with magic and the supernatural with the very mundane, and it's that mix that I think would work well with animated. So I would love to see what they could do with it. The movie, I'm a little bit sort of not bothered about that much, to be honest. The second question is, are you excited or sceptical about the Wheel of Time TV show or the new Dune? As far as the Wheel of Time series goes, I'm fairly ambivalent with that. I'm not really bothered one way or the other. I have enjoyed the books to a degree, but I don't love the books. I'm still working my way through now. I'm actually halfway now at this point. But I think they showed a lot of potential for the show, though. If they do it right, and personally I think if they can get the pacing to be a bit faster than the books, because I think the books are quite plodding, then I think it will be really impressive, the show will be. As far as the new movie of Dune is concerned, I will be watching it at the cinema, in fact, because I'm actually really interested to see what they'll do with it. I'm unsure what it will be like, because of course the David Lynch 1984 movie of Dune, which I've seen, that's the sort of film where it's so bad it's good, or it's so bad you can't help but like it, so to speak. Hopefully they'll do better with this new one. The ideas of what Dune is will be more realised. Of course, they've got to make it cinematic, so the changes will be there. So we'll see. But I am cautiously optimistic about it, and do believe they'll do reasonably well with it. The next person who asked me questions was the Bookfinch, known as Raya. She asked me, since you mentioned travel and are going to be travelling overseas, I want to ask what places in the UK are places you would most like to visit that you haven't gone to yet. And to be honest, I've visited, obviously, I live in England, I've visited Wales and I've gone to Ireland before. The place I've never been to in the UK is anywhere in Scotland. I've never set one foot in Scotland, specifically Edinburgh, but there are other places in Scotland that hold me interest as well. But Edinburgh, I know, has some interesting bookshops, which, is me after all, so, going there and visiting some bookshops would be nice. So, yeah, Scotland overall, because it just looks a beautiful country. I would most like to visit it. But the second question is, what did you want to do as a kid? Is it at all similar to what you have ended up doing for work as an adult? Well, the two things that I had in my head as a small boy was either a pilot or some form of musician. Pilot, that's nothing to do with what I do now. That was just the idea of flying around in the sky is just appealing as a small boy, you know. And the other thing was musician, which I have no musical ability, or at least I've tried, and I can't find any talent for it so far. So that I don't think would work anyway. And I don't have that much of interest in playing music. I like listening to it but not playing it. So, you know, them are not things that, yeah, it's just childish things basically, not proper sort of desires really. Next up, Chris Allen asked me 4 questions. The first of those being, would you say sci-fi is your favourite genre? And if so, why? It is my favourite genre now. It never used to be. For the first 10 years of my reading life, when I first learned to read at age 8 until I was in my very late teens, till like 18, 19, I read nothing but fantasy. Absolutely nothing. And even though I had watched science fiction, obviously movies and things on television, that was my main genre of television, I didn't read books belonging to the science fiction. I don't know why, it's just one of those things. And now it definitely is. I like the grander scale and the sort of more philosophical questions that science fiction often does bring up, because fantasy to me is about character development. Science fiction is about asking questions about what humanity is and what it can be, which is something that I'm greatly interested in, especially as I've got older, which is probably why it's evolved over time in this way. Second question is, do you have a day job outside of YouTube? If so, what subject do you specialise in? Well, considering I've never made any money off YouTube, that would be yes. And I'm not going to say too much other than it is IT related. I'm always wary of sharing certain information online, which is why I've never revealed how old I am, for instance, because, and this might give an indication of what particular sort of speciality that it is. I am very aware of what you can achieve online, both negative and positive, although more negative, with knowing certain information about people. If you know certain information about people, often the wrong information like dates of birth and certain other things, you can do some fairly negative things online, let's say, and that ties in with work-wise and such. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, the next question is, what's your all-time favourite author, if you have one? And that is really simple, is Terry Pratchett. I learned to read literally on a Terry Pratchett book, and it always will be Terry Pratchett. There's Terry Pratchett, then one very small step behind, that every other author is equal. Terry Pratchett, because he was the first author I read, he will always be just a tiny amount ahead of everybody else, just sort of by that standard, if nothing else. You know, he's that special to me, Pratchett, and obviously his death was something that I don't even like thinking about still. Anyway, the fourth question by Chris is, what person, literary or otherwise, inspires you the most? And for this, I don't actually have any one individual person. I mean, there are certain booktubers that I think are really impressive when you see the success of their channel and what they've achieved with their channels in relation to their personality. I mean, one example of this is somebody like Rachel, known as Kalinardi. Rachel is not an extroverted, you know, sort of super confident person with talking in that regard. You know, being online like I am, you know, talking in front of a camera in this way is not a natural thing. But Rachel does an extremely good job of doing that and makes extremely intelligent and eloquent videos. Other people like Raya, like Shannon, like Thomas and various others, they do also brilliant videos, and their personalities work with them and sometimes against them, but they still manage to do really high quality videos. So all of those, plus many other people, impress me as far as booktube goes. And real life, not really sure if there's anybody, at least off the top of my head I can't think of anybody. The next person to ask a question is not just one person, but it's actually two, and that is the channel That's So Po, which is Shannon's channel, although her husband sometimes joins her for videos. Hi Sush and Shannon. And the first question is indeed by Sush, is he wants to know if there have been any changes in your patterns of reading over the years. And I would say quite drastically yes, there has. Now, one thing that I find quite interesting to note, and that might surprise a few people, is what I often hear when people say, oh, about the effect Booktube has had on their reading, is that they read much more since they've been making Booktube videos than before it. Yeah, it's actually reversed for me. I actually, especially a few years ago, I've sped up in more recent times, but I actually read a lot less when I started making Booktube videos, because I had to adjust and adapt my reading. I had to think, like, how am I going to talk about this book whilst reading it? I was reading the book and I was like, how am I going to speak about this at the end of my month? You know, my monthly wrap up. Should I do a review of this book? And I was thinking this whilst reading. Nowadays, it's more instinctive now, because obviously I've been doing it 6 years. So my reading speed is nearly back to what it was. Pretty much is back to what it was actually. So, but there've been other changes as well. You know, like obviously when I left school and college and things, that, you know, my reading dropped a little bit then. But then afterwards, it went up a bit. You know, and my genres, again, as I've mentioned, that's changed and evolved over time as well, as these things always do. The next question is from Shannon, and that is, I'd like to know how many physical books you own. Your shelves are impressive. First of all, thank you. And that number is actually easy for me to check, because I use Library Thing to keep track of every single book that I own. And I own currently 866. I'm not sure if the last book that I got, which I actually just read, which I'll talk about in another video, if that counts. It might be 867. I can't remember if that's included yet. Anyway, the second question by Shannon is, if you have any hobbies outside of reading. And this is an interesting one, because obviously my channel, I talk about books only and exclusively to the point of nothing else. But I do like movies and TV series. As you know, I have made a monthly series on and off about movies and television series over the years. There will be a new one, by the way, but I just haven't watched, I should say, anything that is cast as science fiction or particularly sort of literary focused at the moment. But although I've got a few things in mind that will probably change in February, there'll be another video then. I also like listening to music. I've got more than 300 albums in total, and I sometimes listen to music whilst I'm working on things, but I also like listening to music sometimes purely by itself, where I just sit there and just listen and take in music. I also play computer games quite often as well, and I know some people will ask me, oh, what types of games do you play? So I'll basically preemptively answer that. And the types of games I play, which some people might even be able to guess, are building games, strategy games, and resource management games. You know, things that require deep thought and planning and sort of strategy involved. Those are my kind of things. I mean, I've played virtually every type of game going, every sort of genre, but those are my main ones though, and I'm a PC gamer, in case you're curious. Anyway, so the next person to ask me a question is Andrea from Infinite Text, and she asked me, what is a genre you avoid because you have zero interest in reading it? And I'd say to this, I don't think I've actually found one yet that I would say I'm not going to read it again or not going to try again, because as you know, things as a young adult never works for me, or at least very rarely works for me. But every now and again I will still try a young adult book, because occasionally one does work for me, but the percentage is very, very low of where books are actually that I understand and actually enjoy. And there are other genres though that I've never talked about and I've never actually tried, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't try, I just haven't got around it. Like for instance, romance books. I've never tried romance books, and to be honest, it's not something I've really considered, but you know, I'm not against the idea of reading them, I just don't. I mean, I haven't got access to any personally, I don't know anybody who has romance books, so it's not like I can just borrow a book off somebody to try it as well. But you know, there's no genre that I would actively avoid. I just haven't tried them yet, or don't work for me as well as other genres. Andrea's second question is, but it's not other booktubers inspiring you to read certain books. How do you select what your next reads are when you are alone and pick something kind of obscure on the Booknet? So basically, how do I pick a book when I'm not blaming Rachel for it? I don't know, 'cause I like blaming Rachel, it's fun. You know, saying that it's Rachel made me read it. But when it's not doing that, I suppose, just being around books so often, and when I'm obviously buying books, and various book sites including Goodreads, so you know, if you like this author, you might also like these books or these other authors. That's how I discover authors mostly nowadays. Years ago, I honestly don't know. Before I started using these sites, I don't know. I can't actually remember anymore how I discovered books. I think it's just word of mouth. I think with like my sister and things. So, you know, that evolves over time as well. The next person to ask me questions is Mark from Richardson Reads, a fellow booktuber. And his question is, I was fascinated by your WorldCon videos, and my question would be, what author most impressed you at a con and why? Now, I've only been to two big sort of conventions, and those are obviously the San Jose WorldCon in California in 2018 and Dublin WorldCon last year. The two authors though that stand out for me, I actually went to book readings by both of them back to back, and those are Martha Wells and Yoon-Ha Lee. They both had quite different reading styles of their work. Martha Wells had it all printed out on A4 pages, and she was reading it very clearly and fairly quickly, and she literally just trying to get as much read as she could, page after page after page, and she still had pages remaining, so if she had more time she would have read more. Yoon-Ha Lee did it slightly differently, where he had about 2 chapters that he wanted to read, or one long chapter with several segments, and he just read that, and then after that, and he finished quite early, he just opened the panel up to questions, and everybody was talking about different things and asking about different things. Both of those panels were really good, and obviously being back to back, they kind of stand out for that reason, if nothing else. The next person to ask me questions was Lisa Gertie, and she asked me quite a few questions. The first of which is, do you have a preference for certain tropes, or do some tropes annoy you when encountering them? For example, ancient artifacts, evil twins, or jerks with a heart of gold. The one that I never like in books, and it's a common one actually, is prophecy or preordained fate, you know, your destiny, the destined one. That's a load of rubbish, because the line from Terminator, which I will probably not quite get right, is there is no fate but that which we make for ourselves, which is true though. Every second is new, every moment is new. What I'm going to say in 10 seconds time is not something that can be predicted. Well, I can now, but I know what I'm going to say, but relatively speaking, you know, it's the future is what we make of it. So saying fate or destiny, and people of this, you know, thing that they must do. No, people do what they need to do, what they feel they need to do. You can't say it's got to happen, because it might not. Very few things have to happen, you know, cause and effect, but nothing else. The second question is, what book do you want to have made into a movie or series? And actually I've already answered this previously. I am optimistic that it will be good if it's made into a TV series. I'm not optimistic about the film, whether, because I think it's dubious, frankly. But nothing else comes to mind, because normally I'm always wary of adaptations from books, because often they haven't worked out well. There are some exceptions. I mean, I thought the Lord of the Rings movies were brilliant, but often not so good, frankly. The next question is actually related directly to that. Is, are there any books that you thought shouldn't have been made into a movie or TV series? And for that, I would say the Discworld mini series they made based on 3 different Discworld books. I hate them really badly, which might surprise people. I mean, Pratchett had a little cameo role in all 3 of them, so indeed obviously he was directly involved, but to me they didn't feel right. The characters weren't right. The setting felt pretty decent admittedly, but the characters weren't right, and I never liked them because of that. And frankly, I just try not to think of them, and I prefer them to not exist. To be honest, I'm not happy with them. It's not Discworld for me. Discworld is the way I've read the books, and I've read them a lot, so I kind of know them. I'm probably biased really in that way, you know. To me there'll always be books, nothing else, and there can't be anything else to me, in a way. The next question is, do you ever read your collection? Yes, I do. Only I've been doing so in the last few years. I've actually got 11 books over there, the other side of my room, which I'm going to get rid of at some point when I go near a shop that will take them. And I've got a few more on my shelves that I'm probably going to get rid of as well. But it's relatively few, because I do try to be careful with what I buy. I don't buy books on a whim, because I don't have access to used bookshops or anything very easily. So I'm very careful what I buy. As a result, I don't like getting rid of things, because they generally cost me, well, although I rarely buy books, but I knew I would buy them on offer. So works out. The next question is, do you have an upper limit to the number of books you will have? I'll tell you this, there's no particular number, it's just depending on where I happen to live at any one moment, because of course how many books I have depends on how many books I can fit in my house in a comfortable manner without actually, having ridiculous amounts of books lying all over the place. As it is now, I can comfortably store every book I've got without them getting in the way, and I haven't even begun to double stack yet, so I could more than double my quantity of books up to that 866 number that I said earlier. Could easily reach 2,000 without a problem. But in the future I might live in somewhere different, I might have the storage capacity for them like I do at the moment, so I might have to store them away long term, I don't know. But hopefully no real limit, it depends on what I can buy frankly. Are all the books in one room or all over the house? And almost all of them are in this room alone. There are about 63 books I believe in 2 different boxes under my bed. Those are basically, they are very large graphical books, or in one case fantasy books, which I don't have an interest in having on my shelf yet because I don't really have the room for them at the moment. But if I had excess room I might put them there, but generally I've got these shelves behind me which are considerably higher and wider than what you can see. I have a shelf over there which is a relatively smaller one, and I have one over there which is the same size as it. That's for big books. I will do a like a room tour behind the scenes type video at some point in the near future, by the way, where you'll actually get to see this room where I filmed in for the whole 6 years, but you actually get to see it in full, which I expect will probably interest people. And the final question by Lisa is, are there some books that you no longer have that you regret letting go of? Generally no, because I'm very careful getting rid of my books, because the only place I get rid of books is a charity bookshop. That is not on my usual route to anywhere. I have to go slightly out of my way to actually get to it. So as a result, I have to make a special trip to it pretty much. So I don't get rid of them very often. So I tend to wait until I've got quite a large amount, like 2 dozen, 3 dozen books, and then get rid of them all in one go. So as a result, I will look at the books I'm planning to get rid of, which I've got them over there as I've said, and think, right, am I sure about that? So generally, by the time I actually go to that shop and get rid of them, I am absolutely sure with no problems that I'm not happy with the books and I'm not interested in keeping them around anymore. And finally, the last question is actually the one that I have to do the most research on, and indeed I have to examine my shelves because it's involving quite a bit of book talk. Is by Michael Dowell Montgomery. I hope I'm pronouncing your surname incorrectly. I apologise if I'm not. And his question is, what 3 fantasy books and what 3 science fiction books would you take to a desert island? So basically, so stuck on a desert island, and I've only got 3 of each of the 2 genres to go by. This took me a while because it's quite a hard choice. For fantasy, however, I've chosen God by Terry Pratchett, because, well, frankly, any Terry Pratchett book and any Discworld book would do, because they're all brilliant. Guards is the first of the Guards books. The Guards books, and that book in particular, for some reason that always sticks in my mind, because that was one of the earlier ones I read. Well, obviously, because I read them in order anyway, so, and it's always a special book to me, being Pratchett. The second one would be Magician by Raymond D. Feist. I recently reread this book and did a review of it, which I'll link in the description box below. The Magician book, which is the start of his overall Rift War cycle, which is 30 books in total, which I'm now working my way through. I loved that book when I first read it 9 years ago, I think it was now. I reread that first trilogy more times than most, actually. I've read that trilogy about 7 times by this point, I think. Which, considering I only read it for the first time 7 years ago, is actually really impressive. That means I've read that trilogy 7 times in 9 years, which is, shows how much I like it. The other fantasy book would be Swordspoint by Ellen Kushner. That 3 book series by her, I read a few years ago and I loved them. I can't remember the name of the series, but all 3 books started with Swordspoint are amazing. The world building and her writing style was fantastic and I loved them dearly. onto the 3 fantasy books, I would have to go with Stories of Your Life and Others by Chiang. This is a short story collection, which I think would work well if I was stuck on a desert island. You know, because I could read a short story in between doing other activities. You know, like building shelter or gathering food or whatever I'm doing on the island. You know, to survive. The second book I'm going to choose is another short story collection for exactly the same reason, and that is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury is an author that I obviously really like because I've mentioned him before, and I've reviewed at least 3 different individual books by Ray Bradbury at this point, I believe, and will almost certainly review more other than when I read them in the future. It's a brilliant book and I would recommend it. And the third science fiction book is The Dreaming Void by Peter F. Hamilton. As you know, and as I've become well known for because I've got them literally above my head here, I am a big fan of Peter F. Hamilton. I've read everything of his other than his current trilogy that he's working on at the moment, and the Dreaming Void is the first of his books that I ever read. As a result, it's not many books. The first book by an author that you read, as long as it's not terrible, which obviously Dreaming Void is not, it's actually brilliant, generally can often hold a special place with somebody, with that author, and it does with me. It's a big, epic space opera. It reads in parts almost like fantasy as well, for a very curious reason, which I've never encountered in another science fiction book as well. So it's unique for a number of reasons, and just the scope and scale of what Hamilton tries to achieve and successfully manages to achieve is really impressive. And frankly, I would recommend all 6 of these books, to be honest. And with that said, that is actually it for all of the questions. I think this was an interesting series of questions. If you'd like more details on any particular answer that I've talked about in this video, then, you know, obviously say so and I'll try to answer as best as I'm able. Because, you know, obviously I'll probably missed out details here or there, you know, because I'm doing this almost off the cuff, as you would say, without much research other than that last question. I'm trying not to overthink questions and trying to give pure, honest answers as and when I think of them. Anyway, all the links to the people and the reviews and anything else I mentioned can be found in the description box below, along with my social media. I mean, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. And hopefully 6 more years of me saying that. Hopefully I'll come up with something better maybe. We'll see. Bye for now.